After Russia's attacks on Ukraine on February 24, it is seen that Russia has received a big blow in the ground operation these days. It is a fact that the success of the Ukrainian armed forces is behind the withdrawal of Russia from Kyiv and Chernihiv. At the same time, the sanctions on Russia from the USA and Europe continue to affect the Russian economy deeply. In this regard, one of the biggest and heavy blows to Russia came from Belgium. A large number of Russian assets were frozen in Europe. Belgian Finance Minister Vincent van Petegem said in a statement that since the start of economic sanctions against Russia, Belgium has blocked more than $200 billion in Russian transactions and froze $3 billion in Russian assets. Petegem underlined that financial sanctions against Russia are still not enough to stop Russia's attacks. Petegem noted that Belgium adheres very strictly to the sanctions and restrictions imposed on Russia, and urged all EU member states to do the same. While the Russian economy has suffered a serious collapse in the last 2 months with the sanctions from the USA and European states, this blow of Belgium seems to be fatal for Russia at the moment. In addition, Germany and France's rejection of Putin's ruble offer for Russian gas was a hard blow to Russia. Also, Belgian Foreign Minister Sophie Wilms said on Tuesday that Belgium will expel 21 Russian diplomats on suspicion of espionage during Moscow's invasion of Ukraine.
A Ukrainian army lieutenant said Russian soldiers were fighting stupidly and without strategy as President Vladimir Putin's forces continued to make little military progress in their 5-week war in the Eastern European country. The Russians are fighting stupidly, Second Lieutenant Tatiana Chornovil, a former politician, told CBS News in an interview that aired on Thursday. They don't have a strategy or tactics. They're falling into the same traps, and their commanders are just pushing them to advance. Andriy Yergolsky, a volunteer Ukrainian soldier, criticized Russia's attacks on Ukrainian cities in his own interview with CBS News. It's pure evil what they did, Yergolsky, who said he worked as a crane operator before heading to war and received 2 weeks of basic training, told CBS News. Russia's defense ministry said earlier this week that it would scale down attacks in the northern part of Ukraine as it planned to withdraw forces from around Kyiv and redirect focus on the eastern Donbas region. The US and Ukraine have expressed skepticism over Russia's claim, which comes amid ongoing peace negotiations, and said troop movement was likely a redeployment rather than a withdrawal. Casualties among Russian forces are not widely reported in Russia itself, but using open source material, the BBC has pieced together the story of their advance and found that at least 39 other members of the elite 331st Regiment have died. The men were part of a column that advanced into Ukraine from Belarus, led by Russia's airborne forces, known by the acronym VDV.
Foreign Marines join Ukraine Army. On February 27, just 3 days after Russia invaded Ukraine, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky put out a call for foreign volunteers to join the Ukrainian armed forces, announcing the creation of an international legion. A day later, the president signed a decree waiving visas for any foreign nationals wishing to join the Ukrainian army, while the Foreign Affairs Ministry launched a website providing details about how to apply. Some European officials have welcomed the call and encouraged their citizens to volunteer. At least 2 officials, Latvian parliamentarian Juris Juras and former Georgian Defense Minister Irakli Okruashvili, have led by example, personally traveling to Ukraine to join the war effort. In recent days, the Ukrainian authorities have said that some 20,000 people from 52 countries have applied to join the legion. Meanwhile, on Friday, Russian President Vladimir Putin also called for foreigners to be allowed to join the Russian army in the war in Ukraine, while Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said some 16,000 volunteers are ready to do so. These claims by both Kyiv and Moscow have not been independently verified, and some observers suggested that they may amount to PR moves, part of the information war. The past participation of far-right fighters on both sides of the war in the eastern Donbas region of Ukraine, however, has raised concerns about a possible influx of volunteers with far-right views. Experts Al Jazeera spoke to said that there is still no evidence of a large-scale movement of far-right volunteers towards Ukraine.
Russian troops have opened a market in Belarus to sell goods that they stole from Ukrainians during the invasion, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said. The defense ministry said Russians are selling washing machines and dishwashers, refrigerators, precious jewelry, cars, bicycles, motorcycles, dishes, carpets, artworks, children's toys, cosmetics. That is, everything that the Russians have gained by looting and robbing the civilians in Ukraine, the ministry said in a Facebook post on Saturday, adding that the Russians arranged a specialized bazaar in the small Belarusian town of Naralia. The defense ministry said that a Russian column of trucks with various properties, industrial goods and household things is currently moving from the Ukrainian city of Burin towards the Russian border. Meanwhile, in the Belarusian city of Mazar, Russian troops are unloading packages with things obtained by looting from Russian military vehicles, the ministry said. Ukraine's Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesperson Oleg Nikolenko said Thursday that Ukrainians will never forget the looting of ordinary people. As Russian troops retreat from the Kyiv region after having sustained immense losses, they are looting houses of ordinary people, Nikolenko tweeted. Electronics, clothes, shoes, cosmetics. This is not an army. This is a disgrace. We will never forget and we will never forgive. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has dragged on into its 6th week, with unsuspecting Russian troops facing fierce resistance from Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry announced last week that it would reduce its military assaults on Kyiv and Chernihiv, although the United States has remained skeptical of those claims. We believe that this is a repositioning, not a real withdrawal, and that we all should be prepared to watch for a major offensive against other areas of Ukraine, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said.
Estonia has sent 122mm howitzers to Ukraine. The Republic of Estonia had shipped a batch of lethal weapons, including 122mm howitzers, to the armed forces of Ukraine. Militarny reports about this with reference to the Estonian government. The military aid for Ukraine was collected by private enterprises in cooperation with state institutions. In particular, Estonia has donated anti-tank missiles, howitzers, anti-tank mines, recoilless anti-tank guns, automatic weapons, ammunition, disposable grenade launchers, hand grenades, and anti-tank missiles compatible with the Ukrainian lethal weapons, most probably Javelin systems. The Republic of Estonia is handing over 122mm D-30 howitzers to Ukraine. Martin Hirt, Baltic security spokesman, mentioned that the cargo is worth approximately €220 million. For Ukraine to remain free, more is needed, said Martin Hirt. Czech Republic sent 56 infantry fighting vehicles and 5 T-72M1 tanks to Ukraine. A train with Czech armored vehicles is already moving towards the Ukrainian border. The Czech Republic sent at least 56 PBV-501 infantry fighting vehicles and 5 T-72M1 heavy tanks to Ukraine. The equipment is supposed to be transported to Ukraine by several railway echelons, while the first batch of armored vehicles for the armed forces of Ukraine has already departed, and around midnight it may well appear in service with the Ukrainian army. In the photographs provided by the source of the Avia.Pro news agency, you can see the train on the platforms of which there are 5 PBV-501 infantry fighting vehicles and 5 T-72M1 tanks, and, given the presence of a passenger car in the coupler, experts believe that in the first batch, only 5 PBV-501 infantry fighting vehicles will be sent to Ukraine, but at the same time, the train can be additionally equipped with T-72M1 tanks, while additional coupling of wagons with equipment on the territory of Poland, which is armed with more than 700 tanks of this type. To date, this is the first delivery of armored weapons to Ukraine since the start of the Russian military operation, which indicates the fact that NATO countries ignored Russia's warnings.